times we talk about different topics related to English language teaching, and it's teachers all over the world. So it's just a great chat to be a part of. So if you can type in the chat box what you believe critical thinking is, so we can come up with a group definition, that would be fantastic. Any ideas? In the ELT chat summary, I'll give you a few ideas. I did this Wordle of it. This is some of the things that they picked out. Faisal put critical thinking is divided into cognitive mental skills, knowledge, and affective growth in feelings or emotional areas. And then also attitude, psychomotor, manual or physical skills. Yeah, okay, so yeah. That's one way. You can see some things, maybe from the Wordle, you can get a few ideas. You see the @ signs because it is a Twitter chat. They talk about fallacies, blooms. You may be familiar with HOTS, higher order thinking skills. And so I'm going to read a few of the things that some of the people said in the ELT chat. You can see the Wordle here, but that I thought was really, really good, and about what is critical thinking. So within the chat, they said it's applying reasoned and disciplined thinking to a subject. That's what World Teacher said. Thinking about thinking, and I think that's really important, because I think that as teachers, it doesn't matter if we're language teachers, science teachers, or math teachers, or whatever subject, our main goal, I believe, is to get students to begin to think about their thinking. So I thought that was a good definition. Somebody else said it is the top part of the Bloom's taxonomy chart. So if you're familiar, and I'm getting all of these from this link, so you can go to this link and you can find all the resources and things like that there. But I think that's really interesting. So what I'm going to do is give you a link to Bloom's in case you're not familiar with Bloom's. But there's the Bloom's chart there. And I do believe it's like the analyzing, evaluating, the categorizing, the debating, the arguing. So there are different types of skills that students use. It's beyond memorizing. So yes, definitely I agree with that. Another person I liked with sometimes Graham Hodgson, who's Grammy Latino on Twitter, and he's from Brazil. And I really liked what he said during the chat. He said, awareness of what's behind the language and between the lines, what motivates choices of words. As somebody else said, asking why and how do you know for everything. Somebody else said analyzing and judging information based on previous concepts. Another person talked about thinking about things which may often be accepted as accepted truths. Someone said being able to form arguments, resolve conflicts, solve problems, new forms of communication. So these are some of the ideas that came out of the chat, and I thought were really great at coming to a definition, and all of these are great ideas of what critical thinking is. So why teach critical thinking to language learners? Well, I think one of the main reasons is because we do need to get learners to question, argue, investigate, analyze, evaluate, criticize with and in English, because when they can do that, then it's beyond just the memorizing. That means that they're able to use their English. That means that they're actually coming to the point that is transforming into meaning. And I think that's what's really important about critical thinking, is that when you can critical think in a language, then you get to a certain level where you really get to know the language. Also, we can do something like walk into a classroom. We can present an article, and the article can be something that really gets students to think about something. Like maybe it's about, I remember we did a topic once on the Chilean miners, and my students really liked this article. And I've used this with all levels, and that's another question. You know, what age groups do you think are appropriate for teaching critical thinking? What levels of English? But I remember thinking back, and this came out in the ELT chat conversation as well, that I've used it with all levels, you know, teaching young learners, maybe not my 2-year-old. Well, they do investigate with the things that they do, but also things like I've gotten my learners, my young learners to question things as well. What is missing? You do the famous games where you put 3 things in a line and you say, what doesn't belong in this picture? So I think that's still they're evaluating, they're analyzing, and but the thing is that they can think about these issues, and when they can convey why they disagree or agree, then I begin to understand um, that then they feel like they can use the language to do something. And when they can do something like critical think and argue and debate and analyze and evaluate and express those strong opinions in that language, then they really begin to know the language. So now comes to the part where we wonder, how do I teach critical thinking? So I'm going to give you lots of ideas and lessons that you can use in your classroom next time you walk in. So be prepared and feel free to jump in and add your own kinds of things as well. So here we go. The first thing is to share. I'm going to share a bunch of lessons. You can find ready-made lessons, and this is once again Don Williams, and this is his critical thinking site. So Don is so great that he even gives you a video, and I'll share that with you, about what critical thinking is. It's a really great video, but he has some great lessons that are ready-made, things that videos, and he has the recent one he did was English Droid. English Droid is one of my favorite websites, but there are things that get you to investigate. One of the things that I didn't show you that I should have done, there's actually a book about it at the Round that has 52 lessons, and I definitely recommend that. Let me go ahead and change that, show you that really quick. I forgot to add this one, but I was saying before, and you may have missed this, that Lindsay Clanfield, one of the best known ELT authors out there, did a whole entire keynote on critical thinking skills, and he also did one about ways to critical think and stuff. And him and Luke Meddings came out with a book called 52, and they're subversive ideas. They're great kinds of lessons you can get. If you go to that website, you can actually get a PDF of it, of some of the different types of lesson plans they have. Things like, what if you were in a country, they put their students inside a country, and they say, well, what if you don't know the language and nobody picked you up at the airport? What are you going to do? What if you don't have the money? What if you don't know how to get by? And so I think things like that are really good lesson plans for that you wouldn't necessarily find in a book. And the reason you wouldn't find it in a textbook is because some of these issues are very racy. So these are very, very, very good ready-made lessons that you can use right away. English for Critical Thinkers. One of the ones that he posted recently that somebody on Twitter talked about, he did one that was on where he showed a video about people who couldn't answer. He does things such as why we forget war sucks, something to take the edge of the Monday afternoon, international wage laborers undermining democracy. So these are some of the things in the English for Critical Thinkers side where he shows you an interesting documentary, maybe by Rupert Murdoch, and then he gives you ideas and lesson plans on how to use this with your students. A lot of times he'll tell you to actually get students to react to something very strongly. So they'll argue about it and things like that. Sometimes they're just images. But a lot of times he'll tell you what to do with the images and stuff like that. So you can follow him at Twitter. His Twitter name is Donald the Same. But he comes up with different lesson plans all the time. Film English. Well, one of the things that I did with my high school language learners, and they were from 12 different countries, was that, and they loved it, is I showed them the movie Bobby Kennedy. Now, yes, they were upper intermediate to advanced. Well, no, upper intermediate is what their level of English was. But we still saw the Bobby Kennedy site. We did see it with, I made sure there was a closed captioning so that way they could see it in English. But they were able to understand it, and they thought it was really powerful. They loved watching films. So I think Film English is really a great site as well. If you look at Film English, you'll be able to see a lot of different types of lesson plans that are ready-made, and they talk about different films. But a lot of times I'll show clips to my students, and then I'll get them to investigate. One of the things that I like to do is I like to show the film without any sound or anything, not even the captioning. And then what we do is we analyze the body language, the nonverbal, their facial expressions, the way they move, the setting, and all of that. And then the students, they have to come up with conclusion of what this film clip is about. What are the characters discussing? What are the characters arguing about? Are they upset? If they're sad, things like that. Um, no, you can use any kind of, Kieran Donaghy is actually not from the US, so if you go to Film English, you can find films from everything. And Rasha, that's a great idea. Rasha says that they watch Chinese cartoons, so I think that's fantastic, for kids as well. And then we play the actual film clip, and then we hear the language, and then we see if we were right, and then we actually talk about what's going on inside the actual clip and what the characters are going through. I try to use even like I use 2-minute film clips because I think my English language learners can understand that a little bit better. Oh, and Rasha, if you have any links to the cartoons you show, please share that. So that's the way that I introduce film. But filmenglish.com does have different types of lesson plans based on this and the clips as well. You can use powerful images. If you show something like this, it could spark a debate on what. So you can type in the chat box right now what you think this would be good for critical thinking, starting ideas about. What could this be about? Okay, Clive says censorship. Yeah, definitely, that could be one. You can hear Roscoe in the back arguing. He's very upset about being censored himself. It's something maybe about liberty, maybe about freedom, maybe about how we voice freedom, maybe about how America even, reports wars and stuff like that. So a lot of different types of debates can come out of this. So we can use powerful images to begin sparking critical thinking skills. And the great thing about visualizing it in this kind of aspect is you can use this with beginner levels as well. You can place this in front of high school students and they can come up with different arguments. No, I think it means this. No, I think it means that. So definitely there are different types of English images work well with the lower levels, I believe, and you can find a lot of powerful ones. Now, you can go to ELT Picks, and you can find a whole bunch to use for the English language classroom. So ELT Picks is definitely one that I recommend, and I can give you the site for that. I'll give you the stats. Oh, thank you, Rasha. Rasha just shared the YouTube videos of the different types of cartoons. But you can go to ELT Picks and you'll find a lot of different images that you can use for that. Videos are a great way to spark discussion. Yes, we do have YouTube, and I think YouTube you can find a lot of really great things. But this website is fantastic. It has news all over the world, reality TV shows, things like that. You can do something, for example, with teenagers. It's hard to get them really interested in topics and really get them interested in critical thinking. So one of the things that you can do is it has a reality TV show section. And trust me, you show little tiny clips about the Jersey Shore and you ask, is this really appropriate behavior while they're in Italy? Or do you think that the way they conduct themselves, the way they fight, and you can get them critical thinking about this, and they will discuss it because these are things that they are very interested in. So these are ideas even that your teenagers, language learners would use as well. When you go to blinkx.com, you click on any of these videos here. I'll show you. You can click on any of those videos and it pops them up and makes them larger. And the great thing about blinkx.com is it's news all over the world. This is the news happening right now as we speak. It just gives you all these news resources. And you can even embed it in a wiki or blog or class website for free. So these are really great ways. Kids, they can go, they can click on any of them, and then they can tell you a little bit about what the news is about. They can summarize it, but then they can go beyond the summary, and they can go and they can start talking about what they're reporting and what they believe about that news. Here's an interview with somebody. Here's somebody who witnessed a crime or something. Obama. So there's so many different types of topics that you can get there. BlinkX is really, really fantastic. Another way, another great website that you may want to use, or another idea to investigate infographics. You can go to pininterest.com. If you go to pininterest.com and you just search for infographics, you're going to find so many different infographics. Infographics are basically they're visual ways of analyzing data. So you can do all sorts of things. Let me go ahead and give you a link for that as well. But you can do things like, for example, they had one recently that's going around that talks about different countries and what they're good at, but also they have one recently that talks about why you are my soulmate. This guy did this one really interesting infographic asking one of the, the, the top people at Mashable.com to marry him through an infographic. But he was showing in different types of visual graphics. See, you see circle charts and statistics and graphs of why that particular girl had to be the only girl that would be right for him. And it was really fantastic because if you looked in the comments, some people said, I don't know, your math on this is a little iffy. So infographics are really great. You can investigate things such as graffiti. Here you can talk about Google, Star Trek. I mean, you find infographics on anything. Why honeybees are being extinct. So infographics are a great way to investigate and to explore with your students. They can create their own infographics as well, and they can talk about things that they're interested, and they can come up with the statistics behind it and stuff like that. But it really gets them to see statistics and analyze it in a very visual form, and then they're able to talk about it. The next one, thank you, Beth. This one is really great. Speeches. One of the speeches that I love that I used with my students was Randy Posh. And Randy Posh starts talking about how he has cancer, and he did this famous speech. Well, there are a lot of great speeches out there, and you can find the YouTube video. But for my language learners, I really love this website of American Rhetoric. And the reason why is because it has some of the top ones from the, and this is US, I'm sorry about that, but it has it from different great leaders. But the great thing is that it has PDFs of the transcript. So the students can actually analyze the language. They can watch it, they can listen to it, and they can analyze the language between 100 different speeches. Now, if you actually go to the site, then you're going to go ahead and you're going to see speeches from, they say these are the top 100, but you'll see speeches from Abraham Lincoln. You'll see movie speeches. They have speeches, Obama speeches. They have figures and sound. So they've added a lot more than just the 100 that they have there at AmericanRhetoric.com, but you can do the top 100 speeches as well. In the top 100 speeches, I think you'll even see things from maybe, you'll even see cool exercises on it. and different things like that. So I think that the I have a dream speech and stuff like that. So you have different ways to have these lessons. You could take a speech every single day of the I mean, like you could do every Friday is Speech Friday or something like that, and your students could analyze these. So you have a, oh yeah, exactly, bias towards male life. But there are some women there as well. TED Talks are fantastic, but one of the great sites that I found was this ESLTEDTalks.com site. So it shows you because sometimes the TED Talks are so difficult for a language learner. So you want to use them, but then you think, well, how am I going to prepare it and make it for my language learners? You don't have to worry about that because you go to ESLTEDTalks.com and it has like, if you look right here, it tells you, it says for this 10-page ESL lesson in a PDF format, download right here. See? So it gives you lesson plans on some of the great TED Talks out there. So it's all prepared for you in language that is adapted for your English language learners. So, and even if you may have some ideas yourself about TED Talks. So TED Talks are really just fantastic, and there's different ways to adapt them. So if you don't want to use the ones in this particular site, they have them on so many different theories, and if they do have the transcripts, so you can copy and you can paste the transcripts from the TED Talks website itself, and then you can begin to use them to analyze the language and put chunks of language maybe in a Wordle form, and you can put the Wordle up just like I did at the beginning about critical thinking, and you can ask your students to start picking out phrases and words and asking them about the ideas, and this could be the prediction or the pre-thinking before they actually see the TED Talk. And then you can see if they agree or disagree. They can do their own TED Talks in response to this if they're advanced. And this is a presentation skills as well. Oh, thank you, Ella. Okay, Mary, if you have any TED Talks that you or if you have a blog post about how you use them, then that would be really fantastic. Please do share. Another way that I get my students to think is through mind mapping or concept mapping. And I use this a lot with my adult students. This is what it looks like. So I put any theme on the board. This is one on meetings, but they can critical think about anything, any topic. The Chilean miners, like we were talking about. We've done immigration before, and then we'll do a pro and con. So you have the main topic in the middle, and then you go and you have different branches, and the branches are subtopics. And these are things from each of my students. We sit in a circle, and then I ask them each to contribute. We do something like, for example, okay, so Rasha says that they do the same thing but with a flower shape. That's fantastic. Exactly. You can do mind mapping with children as well. Here we talked about what makes an effective meeting. All of these are ideas from the students. I just wrote down the vocabulary, or I wrote down their thoughts. I summarized it. And so it's easy for the students to see. Any new vocabulary that comes out of the discussion that emerges that we don't know about, that somebody else talked about, I list it on the side. It's on the side of the board, and then we talk about that. And then the students usually take pictures of it. But if you have an interactive whiteboard, then you can just email it to all of your students, and they'll have this, and this is the discussion that they talked about. You can do something like this, which is for students as well. This is a 3D mind map, a graphic organizer we sometimes talk about as well. And I actually have a pin interest on this, so I can show you that as well. But this is a 3D, so you can do this with students as well, like Rasha was talking about. And here they're obviously doing it on what subject? It gets them to really explore and investigate, but can anybody tell me what this might be? Any ideas? Okay, so yeah, they're talking about science and things like that. Here's a graphic organizer site that I have here. they're talking about outer space, but there's a lot of graphic organizers there. One of the best websites for this that I believe is Poplet. Poplet is also on your as well. You'll find Poplet as a free app for your iPad or iPod, and it's a way to make a mind map online, and it's a free service. It's one of my favorite tools. You can add visuals and things like that. So poplet.com, and I did put that link in the box. Here's a really easy one you can use with lots of learners. It's a KWLH chart. Does anybody know what a KW, the K, the W, the L, and the H stands for? Sometimes it's a K, W, L, and W. Okay, so yeah, exactly. Know, what to know. So yeah, know, what do I want to know, what I learned, and how I learned it. Exactly. So the KWL is a great way to do to introduce the topic, to get them to start critical thinking behind. The great thing is about these. Oh, thanks, Baz. Baz put it all in one. But the great thing about this is, so this is the before. What do you know about the topic? So you make connections with your own previous experience, what you want to learn so you can engage them, get interest, and then afterwards what they learn. So this comes before the pre, and this comes after the activity. What they learned, and then how they learned about it, what websites they went to, what tools they used. Did they use the mobile device? Did they use a computer? What apps did they use? They can list all of that in the how to learn. But the great thing about this is starting to teach learners and language learners how to think about their thinking, because it takes them through the process of thinking, making connections, or the cognition in the brain. You make connections, and then it stays in long-term memory. It's the way that we do learn. Investigate the news. That's another way to do critical thinking. I like the Breaking News English site by Sean Banfield, and these are ready-made lessons as well. I like showing you ready-made lessons because sometimes we just don't have the time to do this. And for me, I think some of these lessons are so good. Why reinvent the wheel? And he does this for the most, he's very, very up to date, Sean. So this is definitely, he has thousands of news sources out there for any single topic, and it's around the world. He's in Japan, but he also was in Australia, and so he does from all the world. It's world news, and a lot of the news sites, what I do, he has quizzes, online quizzes. He has listening. They can subscribe through an RSS feed. He has PDFs where they debate, where they do surveys with each other. They evaluate the really small. This is as much as the article is. So he does all of this, and it's absolutely free. So these are definitely lessons that I would recommend. Something a little bit more difficult is podcasts. Now, with advanced learners, this is a little bit easier, but the listening, I try to find things that have a transcript. That's really hard to do. So if you have any podcasts that you think are really good, one of the ones my students, the advanced ones, really love is This American Life. And This American Life is a great one because in This American Life, they always talk about really different types of hard-hitting issues. But if and I can show you this, but I would only recommend it with advanced learners. I think podcasts, they're great, but you have to have the transcript for other learners, and you have to do some pre-listening and after listening and during listening activities to really get the students to understand the vocabulary and stuff. You can make it very up and alive and active. So debate is definitely one way to go ahead and to be a part of critical thinking and be active about it. And this is when I was in Brazil. And what I did is you put a tape on the bottom of the floor, masking tape, and then you have students stand on either side. So you can do something, ask a question, and if they're on this side, they're for it, they're pro it. If they're on this side, then they're against it. And then they can face each other, and they can have a 1 minute arguing about it. So one of the things they can do is, for example, you have them face each other and you say, I believe that abortion is always should be legal. And you can use different types of adverbs as well. You can say usually should be allowed or legal, or sometimes, or never. So you can make it immigration. They should never allow people across the border. They should allow, and then you'll see that the students just get so heated and they keep arguing and arguing and arguing. Sometimes I can't even get them to stop. So one of the things that I do as well when I do this, just as kind of a way to manage it, is I usually give them something like, I guess we'll use this water bottle, and I say, okay, whoever has this water bottle gets to argue, but you can only do it in 30 seconds. And then when I time it and I say, okay, your 30 seconds is up, I take it away and say, now it's this person on this side. It's their turn to go ahead and have the floor. So that's one way. Quickie.com is one of those places where you can find information on anything. And it's through audio as well. You have a voice speaking and they speak really slow and stuff. But the great thing, you can find it on, it's like a talking Wikipedia, but in small chunks with visuals. It's so cool. But the great thing about Quickie is the students get to go and they get to talk about a topic. It's their way to share information and really the things that they investigate. After they investigate it, then you can have them make a quickie about it, and they create interactive stories in minutes with their voices and with pictures and visuals, and they can state the facts and things like that. So I think that's a really good thing for learners. Google World Wonders. I think you would love this because one of the ways that we can investigate is that we get students to investigate what happens around the world. And so Google World's Wonder Project, you can explore anywhere around the world. You can see buildings and things in real time. It's the street view, and you just happen to go there, and it's so cool. So you can be there, and it's real time. It's what it, if we went right now to Kyoto, it would be Kyoto right now at 3:50 my time, or whatever time it is for you. This one is a really good. If it were myhome.com, now this takes a real critical stance. So if it were my home is one of those sites that's already telling you, what the poverty level is, what it looks like, and it's already raising issues for you, and this is all over the world. Library Man, of course, always has fantastic critical thinking sites, so you can find lots and lots and lots of links here. And we're about to wrap up soon, so I'm going to go ahead. Oh, you're speaking from one of the homes in London? And so you can go ahead and you can go ahead and check out these websites for even more. Which one? Oxford. Would this be? I have no idea. Critical thinking. I have no idea. You'll have to tell me. Oh, Rakesh! My good friend Rakesh. So Roscoe and I are here with our critical thinking glasses here. We hope that you have had a great time and learned a lot, and we got your critical thinking skills as well up and about. And if you have any questions or anything like that, go ahead and you can visit the bit.ly site, or you can even email me. And well, I hope you have a great weekend, and thank you so much for coming today. We will see you next week for another one. And the next one will be on pronunciation. I know I said that last week, but this next one will be. If you have any questions or anything, please let me know. Thank you.